Hello, I am Hannah, and in this video, I will be telling you everything that I understand about culture, its elements, and its characteristics. First, we ask, what is culture? Of course, there are plenty of definitions as to what it is, but to put it simply, culture is a whole way of living, from what we know, from what we believe, from our customs and our habits. All this makes what culture is. To understand culture better, we will talk about its elements. We have 5. First, symbol, then language, then norms, values, and artifacts. Each of them we will be talking about so that we will also be able to learn more and deeper about it. The first element is called symbol. And symbol does not only mean tangible objects, but they are also non-verbal communications. The best example is the saying or the gesturing of thumbs up. Thumbs up in many countries means approve or you did a good job. Second element is language. As it has been said by researchers, language is a bridge to communicate, but it is also a bridge to miscommunicate. But as long as there is an appropriate understanding through symbols and gestures, now it is not impossible to actually bridge the gap. Language such as the way the language that we use or the ones that we speak, or even non-verbal languages are considered as language that is attributed to culture. The third element of culture is called norms. Now, norms are the standards or the expectations of how people should behave. That is why it is classified into 2, formal and informal. Now, what are these classifications? Formal norms are the basic or the standard ways of behaving in a society, or how people are expected to behave. And informal norms are also called as folkways or customs. And these norms change in the course of time, depending on the needs of people and of course the society as a whole. The fourth element of culture is called values. Now, values are those that people or the society identifies as either good or evil. Now, it's a universal knowledge of people as to what is good and evil. But then, a culture is shaped based on its understanding of what is good and evil. For example, in the Philippines, it is good to commit good deeds, those that bring goodness or welfare to the people. But those that are not accepted in the laws or in the values of the society is considered evil. But then it may be different from another country, from other countries. For example, abortion is illegal in the Philippines, but in another country or other countries it is, thinking that in the Philippines abortion is killing a child, and that also means that it is an evil act, and it goes back to its values. But for other countries, like those highly civilized or in the West, it is legal because it is in accordance with their human rights. The last among the 5 elements of culture is artifact. Now, artifact is also associated with the physical objects that the society needs. These days, we know about or hear about artifacts when we attend history classes or art classes, and it is one way of educating the younger generations that these tangible objects or physical objects help shape a society's culture as to what it is now. We can see artifacts in museums or ancestral places where these artifacts that speak something about a certain place culture or a country's culture is preserved or is being preserved. We are done with what are the elements of culture. This time we will talk about the characteristics of a culture. Now there are 6 characteristics of a culture. First, it is learned, it is integrated, it is shared, symbolic, adaptive, and dynamic. We observe, we imitate, we communicate, we absorb, and we learn. That means to say that culture is learned. And what we learn is based on what we need. And from what we need, it manifests total satisfaction in a way that culture is learned. Even when we can acquire learning of culture from schools, it does not equate to total satisfaction because it always goes back to what we need, most especially our physical needs, such as food, clothing, shelter, and other things that can make up our lives to the best that it can. Culture is shared. As the saying goes, sharing is caring. Okay, now culture is shared by people who have the same beliefs, the same perception and acceptance to plenty of things that exist in their culture. That is why most of us accept other countries' cultures because we think of it as acceptable and it adheres to our beliefs as well. In that way as well, it makes ours more diverse and theirs as well as diverse as ours. But it doesn't mean that those who have shared cultures totally are individualistically the same. But let's just say it is in general. Next, a culture is shaped by symbols. But here's the thing. Symbols may represent something, but it does not have to mean that it has its own meaning. Unlike language, language has its representation. And culture is symbolic in the sense that it has a representation, but it does not always mean it has its own definition. As said, culture is symbolic, and that symbolic knowledge is shared with the society. And from there, they learn. Culture is integrated. It means it is not only one-sided or is focused in one part, but it is surrounded by all the components that makes a society. Family and what a family does or expected to, education, technology, and so on. From acquiring all these things that each component is practicing, then that makes a culture as well as integrated. Next, culture is adaptive. It means it changes in the course of time. That is why we mentioned in the elements of culture that norms can change in the course of time, and it depends on the needs of the people in the society. The last one, culture is dynamic. It means as what adaptiveness is, dynamism follows. It is not stagnant, it is not still, it is moving as long as time and people revolves and evolves. It metamorphosizes to bring in the satisfaction of people towards their way of living. Let us not forget that if you don't know history, then you don't know anything. That is by Michael Crichton.